mai, haere mai, e te whānau. Welcome to the Flight of the Next podcast. My name's Holly. I'm on Gadigal land in Sydney, as is Danny. And in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, we have Erin. Well, we have 3 games to talk about today. We will start with the men's game. We played at home against Adelaide on Saturday. A 2-1 loss. Jovanovic scored, Sheridan an own goal, Corbin Piper with his debut goal, a header. So 2-1, no reefer, no pain, and I think that we've paid for that somewhat. Who would like to start? Erin?
Sure. I think overall it was a better performance than the one we put out against Melbourne City. We actually had a shot on goal for one, but I just think that they, Adelaide are second on the table, or they were top of the table team at the time, and so I think to kind of come out against them and put on a better performance than what we did, and to get a goal as well as kind of what we were asking for last week, just to play better and to show a bit more promise going forward. Obviously we want 3 points or at least 1 point, but I think with the injuries we have at the moment, the depleted squad, I actually thought that it was, a relatively okay performance given the circumstances. We had half of a Sam Sutton who limped off with the virus. I don't quite know how that works, but he didn't even last the whole game either. And we gave away 2 pretty easy goals, I think. The Sheridan own goal, I think that was probably worse than the Hughes own goal because that ball did not come in as fast and, as quick as Sakai put it in against Auckland FC. I just think that he was just positioned pretty poorly and probably didn't need to put that into the back of the net. And then, the second one was just Josh not quite grabbing the ball, dropping it right in front of their feet and going in. Extremely inexperienced backline, and I think that probably showed with what was happening there. But at least it was better than the week before. That's all I have to say about that.
I find it was better than the week before, certainly. But I find that my opinion about it is more based around my expectations of this week than we had last week. So I probably react very differently to this game than I did to the last one. And then thinking about it, I realized that this season we've pretty much gone through the 5 stages of grief for losing what was a table-topping team last year, in that we started off with denial. It's all right, when I dropped a point against Western, that's fine, we'll be there, it's not a problem. Bargaining, well, as long as Rojas stays fit, and Kolakowski's better than we think he is, we're going to be all right. Anger is like, God, this is a piece of shit, Chiefy needs to be sacked, get rid of these players, get rid of that. To depression, which is last week, where it's like, I just don't care what happens, everything bad. And now we finally arrived, or I certainly finally arrived at the final stage of grief, which is acceptance, which is like, yeah, we're not that good. We lost most of our good players. Our other good players are all injured. We're playing a lot of academy products who are not very experienced. What do we actually expect to happen? And the reality is, we're not going to beat decent sides, and Adelaide are a decent side. All we can do, and it sounds very depressing, but all we can do is try and take enjoyment out of what we can do in the match. Last week there wasn't any joy to be had. This week it was an improved performance. We defended reasonably well. If it wasn't for 2 personal mistakes, they probably wouldn't have scored. There's a bit of enjoyment to be taken out of the fact that someone like Corbin scored. Corbin Piper, sorry, the other way around. As a young player, that Walker got on, seemed useful. Luke Smith looked quite useful as well. We're not expecting to beat teams now. We're not dominating teams. We're not even playing really great football to watch. But, my expectation now is I'm going to take the enjoyment of what I can, which is probably the young players and maybe an improvement from last week, which, it's a shame that we can't be looking for a team that's going to be winning all the time like we did last year, but that isn't the reality that we're sitting in at the moment. We could have got a point out of this. And it wouldn't have been totally undeserved. And I think that gives us a bit of hope for games coming up. If we can compete against a side who are going fairly well, they were top of the table after the game. Once we get, I'm back to bargaining again. Once we get back Rufa and Payne back, maybe we can pick up some points. Maybe we can hit the finals. I don't know, but really, I didn't mind this game. Again, I quite enjoyed watching young players play, and that's what I was getting some enjoyment out of it for. But yeah, it's all that, isn't it? Yeah, we still lost. Still wasn't hugely enjoyable, but right on the next game.
It's the apparently sixth goal caused by an individual error this season, and we keep picking these up. And one person said on our chat that when we scored the own goal, well, at least it wasn't Hughes again. He's copped it enough. It is frustrating. I think, Chiefy after the match said, look, Hughes' body position was wrong. He was too far in the post. And I think with Joshy's mistake, I feel like he's come up for the ball, and I think Scott Wharton's just drifted slightly further into him than he was expecting. Again, you're a keeper. You should be braced to hold on to the ball even if you get hit. But again, it's bigger issues. It's not individual errors. I think that we perhaps could have gotten something out of this. It's just, those stages of grief, Danny. I think you've summed it up, and I think we are getting to acceptance where it just kind of is. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Chiefy in his post-match comments sort of seemed that he's at that place as well, whereas previously, obviously, he's always talked about the new system he wanted to bring in at the start. We're going to evolve to this, amazing new system which would work. And then when that wasn't happening, when various players got injured, he was like, well, okay, we'll go back to what we were playing last year, which is, still a system he believes in. But now he's like, well, I'm just going to play a system that I can get the players to play. Basically, whatever I can get those people on the pitch to play, we'll do that and see, how well we can do that. And that's effectively what he did today. I was watching the game with a non-Phoenix fan, and he was asking about Corbin Piper and saying, who's this guy? I've never seen him. And I was like, well, look, he puts himself about a bit. He's quite good in the air. Technically, not really all that. Passing, probably not his strongest game. To be honest, I'm not really sure why he's in the team. And then we got a corner. So there you go. And that showed, why he's in the team, because, we can't be picky about who we put in there. If somebody can contribute, even if it's not in the way that we would like to play football or, really fits in with our style, they go in there, and we let them do what they can do. And he did very well and scored a goal, and, all credit to him.
Yeah, I think we started the season a little bit too good for the new squad, and people kind of started thinking that maybe we had a chance of making the top six, or maybe we can scrape through and get some good results. And then we started to lose all the players, and we started to not look as good and not get the results and go on that losing streak. And I feel like we almost needed to start the season off as like a Raw or Perth, where they started poorly, and Perth got a really good result against Auckland FC, and people are cheering, and they're like, "Hey, wait, we're so back! We're going to win the league, best team in the league." You got George the Gorilla running around, dancing around, and I think that now we're at the stage where we thought that maybe we had a chance of doing something, and we're just kind of seeing the full impacts of who we lost, and who we have now, and what we're working with. And it's basically a new squad, from whoever played in that final game last year. I think there's only probably like 3 left standing, maybe 2 in the starting squad from the weekend. And so hopefully we can get some good results for the rest of the season. But I think, I'm at that same acceptance stage now where this is kind of where we're at, and we have to work with what's happening. And maybe we can bring in a few players to replace Oscar, or bring in a new visa player to replace Ball, who today was announced that he has chosen to leave the club, and get some maybe new people in who can help fit the style of play, and hopefully try to claw our way back to a more respectable position on the table.
Yeah, I think, that was the huge news out today, was David Ball. It has been on the cards. It's been suggested that they were looking to mutually terminate his contract. And obviously he's been on the out for a long time. I speak for myself, and I think some other fans too, that we've been struggling in attack. We've been struggling to progress the ball up the pitch. We've been struggling with creating chances, and I don't understand why we didn't go, okay, shit, let's put David Ball in. Obviously, Chiefy doesn't want him playing. I don't understand why we didn't just try him. How are we this desperate and we choose not to give him a chance? So I think obviously we've lost Oscar van Houten. That's a much smaller loss. He was able to contribute here and there, but was very much a off the bench player, and just never quite came right. But I think maybe his development didn't push forward as much as perhaps we would like. So letting him go doesn't matter. I just it does sound like we are going to sign a visa player. Sounds like up front. And hopefully someone to replace Van Houten as well.
Absolutely. So, yeah, look, really real shame to hear about David Ball going. I think, obviously, it was always coming. I imagine that most of the season there's been discussion between the club and him about this. I think that's why no one's really been out there in the public saying definitely this or definitely that, because there's been various contract negotiations going on all the way. Possibly why he's not been playing as well, just to not muddy up the waters. We don't know what's happening in the background there, but clearly he wasn't in Chiefy's plans, and therefore better for the club for him to be somewhere else. Whether it's better for him or not depends on what he's got lined up. And I suspect that I hope for his sake that he's got something else lined up coming up, and that's why he's agreed to terminate his contract, or the clubs terminate his contract, whichever way they want to spin it. They definitely put out a very glowing reference for him, if you like, on the various socials, saying they're sure he'll be involved in Wellington football in the future. So that suggests he might be coming back to the club in some form whatsoever or another at some point in the future, which I don't think would be a bad thing. We've seen how positive things like Greenacre and Eiffel can be. The people who've really sort of bought into the culture, and obviously he's very knowledgeable. And all the younger players and even the women's players seem to say he's been a really positive force around the club. So hopefully he can still be involved in one way. Whether he still thinks he's got some playing time left in him and wants to go play somewhere wherever he can get a game, then maybe. But I guess there's also the thought of his residency situation as well. If he and his family want to stay in New Zealand, he's going to have to try and work that out as well. It makes it a bit more complicated for him. But hopefully it's not the last we've seen of him around Wellington Phoenix, because he's a great player. He's also an ex-Bradford City player, the last one at the club. So for me, that's fairly personal as well. So I'd like to see him play there. Van Houten, good for him. I think it was sort of fairly clear he wasn't going to kick on and become a starting team player. He might have been around the squad for a bit longer, but the fact that we're starting 16-year-olds in probably his position now shows that he's probably not going to make it. He never really quite kicked on. He's always sort of on the cusp there. So if he can get a career as a professional footballer somewhere else, then good for him. It might help him develop. You never know. Maybe he'll come back in 3 or 4 years' time and be a starting player for the new Christchurch franchise.
Right. Let us speak about the 2 upcoming games. We've got the double games this week on. I have many notes. Okay. At home versus Sydney, I hope they can give Bawley a good send-off with the crowd there. So that'll be at Sky Stadium, Wednesday, 7 p.m. New Zealand time. And on the 20th, Danny and I will be going to watch them play Macarthur at Campbelltown Stadium. That's 9 p.m. New Zealand time. Now, both of these sides have been playing quite well. I'm not sure how we're going to do. Depends for Macarthur, which Macarthur shows up a little bit. But Sydney, I mean, maybe we just pray that Lolly gets glandular fever and doesn't play. I don't know. Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, look, it's going to be tough again. Both very good sides. Sydney, clearly the best side in the league on paper, but that hasn't sort of been reflected in their performances. I have a lot of Sydney FC mates, and none of them are particularly happy with Ufi at the moment. They're just sort of on the cusp of saying he's crap and needs to go. They've had a couple of results recently where they've sort of got themselves over the line. So it looks like they're finding a way to win, even if they're not playing up to their potential. They'll be very difficult for us. As you say, someone needs to stuff some apples into Lolly's bag before he comes into the country, because he's going to be the real dangerous one there. I imagine we'll double up on him. which may leave gaps elsewhere. But, look, we defended pretty well against Adelaide. I imagine we'll do the same. So I imagine it'll be a similar sort of game plan against Adelaide. It'll basically try and see how the first half scoring and see if we can nick something up the other end. I'd like to think we might be able to get a draw out of this. I'm not sure. But, I'd like to see some game time for Luke Brooks-Smith again, maybe Sloan Rodriguez, and just see if we can, have a bit of a spark going forward anyway.
Yeah, I think Sydney's last 3 games have all been against bottom of the table teams. They've had Jets, they've had Perth, they've had the Mariners, and they've won quite convincingly over Perth and Central Coast, and I think they got a draw with the Jets. And so they're used to playing teams pretty much like us at the bottom, scraping for results. And so, I think, maybe they're going to come in pretty and knowing what to expect, especially with, Tale there as the coach who's worked with Chiefy. They're probably in each other's heads a bit as well. They kind of know each other's game plans. Maybe that means he'll do the opposite, or maybe do exactly what you're going to think he's going to do to fake him out, because you think he's going to do the opposite of what you think he's going to do. It's all half of it's probably going to be a mental game there with Chiefy. But yeah, Sydney are a good side, and hopefully we can get something from it. But they had a substitute come on in their last game and score a hat-trick, so they've got depth on the bench, which we probably don't have as much. So I think it'll be a tough game regardless.
The MacArthur game, again, MacArthur seemed to be in a bit of form. It's going to be unusual because normally when we go out to MacArthur, we win all the time. They're very much our bunnies out there. And it's always been a fun game to go out there. Thunderstorms providing. But this time, I'm not going out there with as much confidence as we used to. But they do seem a little bit brittle. So I think, potentially this could be an opportunity maybe to get a point or maybe even 3 points away from home. So fingers crossed for Monday.
Yeah, well, one of the quite potentially shocking things that we noticed against the Adelaide game was the booing every time we passed the ball sideways or backwards. And it caused some controversy. I mean, the Knicks fans aren't actually that fast to boo their team, unlike some fan bases, so it was interesting to see. And then the booing stopped when we started playing forward. We'll see what happens. Hopefully we get lucky. So the next games we'll talk about, obviously, is the women's games. We will start with the game on Thursday versus Western Sydney Wanderers out at Wanderers Football Park. We won 3-0. So the first goal, Alyssa Wynnum scores within 7 seconds of kickoff. When the ref blew the whistle, we started in O Wellington, and we didn't even get to the end of the O Wellington, and the ball is in the back of the net. Absolute confidence, shot from deep, keeper off the line, great goal. Second goal, Maya puts up a shot. It's rebounded by the keeper, the replacement keeper. We'll talk about the red card. Olivia Kelly gets on the rebound. The third goal, I think, in some ways was actually the better goal, even if it's been overshadowed for Lissa's goal. Jelly puts a perfect lobbed through ball. It is perfect. It's so good that Emma Main doesn't even have to take a touch before shooting. It just bounces and she shoots. It really is a beautiful goal. Definitely very much enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun in the little corner of yellow. We had a really good turnout. If you can hear fans on the broadcast, it was all us. Danny, what was the mood like in the little corner of yellow?
This was such a good match to go to. I talked about the men's game and just trying to find bits of joy where you can. This was just 90 minutes of joy. People have said it's possibly the best performance the Phoenix women have ever put up in their history, and I would have to agree with that. It was just absolutely dominant. And just even better, the fact that possibly away from home we had a good turnout, as you say, so we were a good, probably 20% of the crowd, I think there, were Phoenix fans, and obviously we were singing more than them because they had nothing to cheer about at all. The rain stopped just before we got there. It'd been raining for the past 3 days, stopped just as we got in, so it was perfect conditions for football. And normally you don't have a lot of fun in Rooty Hill at that time of night, but yeah, this was great. We were just so good. We were just so good from start to finish, from back to front. No one had a bad game. The press was really tight. Ferguson got that ball coughed up for so many times. McCutcheon and Wynnum at the back were picking up any balls that came out of that press. And then Flea just had almost completely free rein to run around wherever she wanted to. And so the passing around the front was just a joy to see. How we didn't score any goals in the first half, I have no idea, because we had something like 22 shots and we were shooting basically, on site, especially Jale and Longo were both shooting whenever they wanted to. And it was just a matter of time. I mean, in the second half, obviously, Wynnum started off with that goal, which was outrageous. And then we just carried on. And it was just so good. It was just great to watch. Jale was absolutely imperious. She played with such a arrogance that I haven't seen her play with before, or almost anyone. She basically, when she had the ball, she got the ball, she just knew, and you could see she could do whatever she wanted to do. If she wanted to go past the player, she'd go past the player. If she wanted to pass the ball to someone, she'd pass the ball. If she wanted to shoot, she'd get the shot. There was nothing anyone could do to stop her. It was a real joy to see. She really reminded me a bit of Jude Bellingham, if anybody watches England games, about that, just where they're just on a level above and they can literally do whatever they want, and she was doing that. I know Western Sydney Wanderers are not the best side, but they're still an A-League side. They still get results. They were down to 10 men for the second half, but realistically, that didn't matter because their attackers weren't doing anything anyway, because it was all basically attack against defence. So just a lot of fun. I mean, the only negative you could possibly say is we had 41 shots and we only scored 3 goals. We probably should have had 5, 6 or 7. But really, yeah, it was a great night out, and the nights you remember why you are a football supporter, because those are the ones you really enjoy and will remember.
Oh, that was such a good game of football. I think that I felt like it was just going on for hours because I was just enjoying it so much that like every single thing we touched just turned to gold. And Western Sydney just weren't putting on any pressure. They weren't really doing anything most of that game, and we pretty much had free reign to just do what we wanted. If we wanted to shoot, we'd shoot. If we wanted to pass, we'd pass. We were putting together incredibly great passing triangles. All the movement was good. We would get in the ball, we were turning, we'd go back and we'd just turn them again as well, just for the fun of it. Beat you once, we'll beat you twice, why not? And yeah, you can just see that Wynnum's goal, it was just really interesting to see how Western Sydney had set up for that one, because the midfield came to try to press her. Wynnum turns, and then you look, and their defense is all the way back basically on their goal line. There's just a massive space in between, and no one tries to come and close her down, maybe thinking she, won't shoot from there, or she doesn't have a shot from there. Well, she does. Surprise, she's got a shot from there, and she'll take the opportunity. And they didn't press at all that whole game. We had so much time on the ball. It was incredible to watch. And yeah, I've never seen them play like that before, and it's just, that was kind of like the peak of supporting this team. We've been through some rough times with these girls, but that was probably a highlight for me. And the game was quite late as well, on like a Thursday night, and I swear I just couldn't sleep at all that night. I was just so excited for what was to come, and to see this team week by week just hopefully get to finals. And yeah, incredible game. And yeah, I do wish we scored some more though. I think, we did hit the post a couple of times. Their first keeper is actually pretty decent. She was making some pretty good saves, and until she didn't. And it might come back to bite us. At the moment, we're sitting in 6th on goal difference, and we could have very easily dropped out of top 6 if the Mariners scored a couple more. And so that was probably our opportunity to get a couple more in and just give us that little bit of buffer. The table's still quite congested at the moment. It's moving every week. We're dropping out, we're going back in, and so a few more goals would have been nice, but I don't really want to come out from that performance with any complaints, because it was such a good game.
Yeah, we should have scored more goals. I think Sham Khamis had a huge part of why we did not score for that first 34 minutes. However, there's been a ball over the top. Fergie's come for it. She's got a touch to it. It's not. It wouldn't have been likely that she would get to it, like to score a goal, but she's played it over. And Khamis has just rocked her in the head with her shoulder, like absolutely smashed. Like you can see on the replay the way her head moves when the collision is made. Now, Some people saying, oh, that's not a dog, so why did she get a red? Apparently she got a red for violent conduct, because that's incredibly dangerous to just, I mean, thankfully Fergie was okay, but she really hit her quite hard. And you could see immediately after it happened, she was going to Fergie and seeing if she was all right. But that was a pretty nasty tackle. Their second keeper did do all right, though. Apart from conceding that early goal, perhaps she should have been able to stop that when the shot was out from so high. One of the other things I really enjoyed about this game was Alyssa's celebration when she had like the zoomies. I called them the zoomies. Apparently not everybody knows what the zoomies are. It's when like your cat in the middle of the night decides to like run up the walls. So yeah, she's got the zoomies and round. Dean made sure to include that on the goal diagram. I have to say that her XKS of expected knee slide was considerably underperformed, considering her knee slide maybe went 2 centimeters. Interestingly, Olivia Kelly ran all the way to us and did a slightly more successful knee slide. Not super successful, but like, I mean, we're always stoked when they come and celebrate. Always stoked when they celebrate with us. Any other thoughts on Wanderers' game? All right. Well, after that excellent performance. Sorry, Erin?
I was just going to say that I usually don't take Facebook bait. I don't even think it was bait, but there were so many comments that were saying that they didn't even think that foul was a foul. It wasn't even worth a yellow card. And I couldn't, it was like 9 p.m. at night. I couldn't just sit there and just read that because I was hyped up. And they were basically saying that, we only won the game because they got a red card and they were down to 10, even though we weren't, even though we were dominating that whole game. And so, yeah, I did take that bait and just, you can't run out and jump at someone like that when she couldn't have got the ball if she didn't run into her, because that would have been a handball. So nothing she would have done would have not been a foul. And there's just been a bit of a trend of kind of goalkeepers going rogue this season. That's the third one where they've just come out and just taken out a player. Jets, same person twice, but it seems to just be an ongoing trend here. So maybe the goalkeeping committee just needs to rein it in a little bit. And
that was a fantastic performance. As mentioned, we had hung around for quite some time after the game expecting the Sister City Cup to be presented. Apparently it was left at home, presumably at home in New Zealand and not at home at the hotel, because someone surely would have gone and picked it up. Thankfully we won then, because it would have been a bit crappy from us to have not brought it back, and had Wanderers won, then we wouldn't have been able to present it to them. Let's talk about the second game that we played, which was not as successful. We played Adelaide away. We started with Alyssa and Maybar on the bench, which I think was a pity. Alyssa, though, I think perhaps that was a heat problem, because she has had issues in the heat. It was hot, 33 degrees. It was dry. There were 2 drinks breaks per half. We will talk about weather later on under talking point. We looked so sluggish, especially the first half. We were so sluggish, and Adelaide were actually pressing us, which made a huge difference. The first goal, Emily Condon, that's long, the 41st minute. I think that at Martin Sports Complex for that goal, there's a kind of warp in space-time over the top, because Carolina misjudged that ball, and last time we played at Martin, we had Riley Foster misjudging a ball that came over. So I swear there's some sort of like rip in the space-time continuum causing that. I'm pretty sure that Tomkin was offside, and I have a feeling that if we had VAR in the comp, it might have been chalked off. And then a couple of minutes later, we have a goal that is not offside. Mac turns over the ball, just dawdling on it a little bit, and Dorba with a birthday goal. So we scored another goal. Sorry, we scored a goal later on. Alyssa Wynnum, immediate impact. She plays in a cross. Leon just chests it into the goal, unfortunately for her. So I think the second half was much better than the first, but it was nothing over what we felt on Thursday. Erin.
Yeah, there were some tired legs out there. I think that the intensity wasn't there, and the passes weren't happening, and that first goal, I also think it's offside, but I have slowed it down and zoomed it in, and I think that she is offside and she impedes play, and you probably wouldn't be able to pick that up in real time, though. There's nothing you can really do about it. I think Villau probably should have held on to it. I think you look back and Tonkins jumped higher than Villau's hands, which makes no sense. A goalkeeper should be well above that, grabbing that well above the head. So, unfortunate there. And the second goal as well, Mac Barry tries to turn on it. There were so many options to pass it. Don't know if anyone said anything. Don't know if there was a man on call. It's just, very, very sloppy way to lose the goal. And again, two goals in the space of like 2 minutes. The times that we have conceded more than one goal this season, they've all been within the space of like 3 minutes. The Western United game, the Melbourne City game, and then this game. They've all been in that tiny space. And so I think there needs to be some kind of reset on a kickoff that they just try to hold the play. I don't know if they're panicked. When a team scores a goal, they're going to be fired up and they're going to come in hot. I think that we need to just maybe take a step back, and that's happened 3 times now and it's lost us the games. We need to just take that step back and try to pass it and just keep possession of it and hold on for it a bit longer, and stop them from coming at us and slow the play down a bit more. It's rough to see, to be honest. The other games have only conceded 1 and we've managed to get something out of it, but yeah, conceding so many in such a short succession is a bit of a killer, to be honest. But I think you can kind of see the impact that playing 3 games in 8 days does to the players. Playing in 34-degree heat as well. 2 drinks breaks, 4 subs. It's always going to be rough. And I think that maybe Adelaide's with their extra day off kind of had the benefit there of being a bit fresher and being able to just put a bit more energy into the game. Yeah, disappointed coming from that Western Sydney game into that one where the intensity was a lot lower and the passes weren't happening. I think at one point we got a free kick and Olivia Kelly just kicked it straight out because she missed Mac Barry completely. It was just a bit of a rough wash, to be honest, and I was kind of like, oh, well, what's happening here? But hopefully that's just a one-off and we recover well and get back into it and get...
Yeah, I don't think we actually played particularly badly, to be perfectly honest. The conditions obviously had an effect, and in terms of the team we put out there, as you say, Wynnum was dropped to the bench, as was Tanaka, and I'm guessing that was a fitness concern rather than anything else, and I think that did have an effect. It meant that basically when we were pressing forward in the first half, when the ball came, if the ball spat out of the press, even if we pressed them and the ball was coming out of 50-50, Daisy Brazendale generally just sits a bit further back, whereas the week before, if it came out and either McCutcheon picked it up or Wynnum picked it up, we were straight back onto them and put the pressure straight back on them. This time, we didn't have that as much. The passing wasn't quite as sharp as maybe it was before. But even then, I think the first half hour, we were clearly the better side and we were creating chances. Elliot put a couple of good crosses across the box. But Adelaide were a better side, and so they had more of the ball, which meant that we just weren't as effective. Longo had to do more work closing people down, so she wasn't open as much as she was against Western Sydney, so she wasn't able to just pop up in the various places around the front and really create stuff. They had a couple of reasonable chances, but shots far out, which I don't think really troubled Villau too much. But then, it was really 2 individual errors and they got 2 goals. And suddenly, I was thinking, we bit of pressure coming into half time, but coming into half time we're actually doing all right, and then suddenly we're coming to half time, we're 2-0 down. It's like, okay, that game over? Yeah, pretty much. When it comes to that sort of heat and you're having to chase a match, you're just going to exhaust yourself even more, and you could see that as well. And some of the passing, as you say, that pass that Kelly did, and Miss McBarron just went straight out. You could see McBarron going, "Oh, I'm not chasing after that. There's no way. I just can't get the legs to start." And you could see Wall was really struggling. She'd had done a heck of a lot of work at the left, but last 20 minutes, we just couldn't do it. And towards the end, when we should have been pushing on to get that equaliser, and I think we would have been good for it, we were putting long balls over the top, and no one's going to run onto that long ball after playing 70 minutes in 34-degree heat. It's just not possible. So, yes, the conditions weren't everything. They're not the reason why we lost, but they're possibly the reason why we weren't able to fight back as strongly as we did after, again, two individual errors. They made an error as well, which got us a goal back. So I'm not too worried about this. Hopefully it hasn't taken too much out of them for the next game coming up. But I thought we didn't play too badly. I think that the setup was still good, like it was against Western Sydney. Again, it'd be nice to be a bit more clinical, because if we'd have got a couple of those chances in the first half, or even one of them, then that game would have been slightly different. If Adelaide had to chase that game a bit more, I think they would have got more tired as well, rather than us having a chase in the second half, and maybe would have got a bit more out of it. So yeah, a bit more clinical finishing, and I think we're still going to endanger everybody in this division when we play them.
Well, next up, we will have the Jets. I don't feel like we played particularly well against the Jets away, if I recall rightly, and we conceded by a crazy Cass Davis goal from long range in stoppage time, I believe. We now have the Jets at home. I think that we should be beating the Jets at home. A little bit more recovery this time, so this game is going to be on Sunday at 4 p.m. New Zealand time. How confident are we moving forward, Danny?
I'm pretty confident. As I say, we were so good against Western Sydney, and I don't think we particularly played badly against Adelaide. As long as playing in that heat hasn't really taken out of players and they get a decent rest this week, then, if we're on full form, then we can beat the Jets. We're just playing so much better than we were when we played them earlier in the season, when they weren't particularly great, but they scored from a bit of a worldie goalkeeper error from the sideline. But if we can, keep that attacking play together that we showed in the last two matches, we should beat. So pretty confident.
Yeah, I think we're almost a different squad as well than when we played them. Back then, it was still early days. Lake wasn't starting. She was still getting into it. Ferguson wasn't up to match fitness yet either. And so we had a bit of a different lineup, which, coming in now, I don't know if they're going to be expecting, Wall's greatness there, putting those balls in. Ferguson's going to be on them. They won't have a second to think, because she'll be pressing them hard. And so having the home advantage as well, I think that we're in a good spot to get the win here. A good week off to rest and recover and get back into it, and get back to it.
All right, well, do turn out for the men on Wednesday if you can, and the women on Sunday if you can, and we'll see how we go. All right, talking points. It's something that has been repeated and was particularly the case for the game between Adelaide and the Knicks yesterday for the women. Weather, heat and weather delays. So not just the heat, but also there have been delays over pitches being sodden. There have been delays over lightning strikes as well. Obviously, the key thing is that players are looked after, and I think the lightning strike is black and white. You don't want to do that. With the heat, it is a little bit hard to work out what to do, because looking at the forecast for Adelaide, so obviously it was so hot that they needed 2 drinks breaks per half, and that's a lot. That's a lot of drinks breaks to be having, and in a way, if you're having 2.5, then you probably shouldn't be playing. Looking at the forecast, to be honest, they probably, in order to kick off at a slightly better temperature, they would have been pushing it back to like 8 p.m. or that would have been our time. Anyway, they would have been pushing it back. And that sucks for fans because we got to sit there in the pouring rain and the lightning or in the heat. And, a game being delayed by like half an hour, maybe even 2 hours. Not so bad if you're dedicated, you will hang around. But if it's pushed to the next day, there are impacts on that, including for the broadcasting setup. So what are our thoughts on the heat, particularly, Danny?
It's a difficult one. It's a very difficult one for the league because we're talking about player safety here when it comes down to it. Because some of the temperatures they're playing in, running around, players could be seriously injured by heat, and obviously the league will be culpable for that. So, as well as thinking about the fans, as well as thinking about the quality of the play on the pitch, the league sort of has to put players' well-being first and foremost in that. So, if that means delaying matches, it means it. Obviously, they can ameliorate that by not putting matches on at that sort of time and at certain times. And they've done that a bit this season. But at some point, this is Australia. It's the summer. It's going to be hot at some point. You're just going to cop it. It's just the way it is, I guess. And the other school of thought is, look, this is football. It's an outdoor sport. That's the way it works. Sometimes you're going to have wet pitches. Sometimes you're going to have dry pitches. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy. It's going to be rainy. It's going to be hot. That's almost the beauty of football, We're not an indoor sport. We don't have perfect conditions. We don't want it to be perfect. Sometimes, adverse weather conditions can be fun. They can, level the playing field, so to speak, between a good team, football playing team, and not. I mean, again, that's all sort of part of it. The heat, yeah, that's probably the one thing which I think is different because, as I say, it can really negatively affect players' health. And as you say, Holly, if you need to have 2 drinks breaks, 3 if you include half time, maybe you shouldn't be playing it in that sort of temperature. So, I probably wouldn't be against delaying a match like that if it got too hot to be later on. Even if the temperature is high, if you haven't got the actual sun directly overhead, beating any of that will make a bit of a difference.
Yeah, the league did try to combat this a bit by saying that there'll be no more 3 p.m. kickoffs. They've pushed all of those back and saying that's not happening because that's just kind of killer weather there. But, these 5 p.m. kickoffs can still go ahead. I think for New Zealand, it doesn't really matter. We don't get that hot, which is nice. I can't stand the heat, so I'm glad that we don't get that hot. But when you're looking at these schedules, they knew in advance that they were playing this many games in a row, midweek games. I think that they probably should have taken that into consideration with some of the timing of the games. It's quite unhealthy to be playing in this kind of temperature 3 times in 8 days is quite hard for the players, and especially in the A-League women's, you're only allowed 4 outfield subs. Replacing 4 players when you've had all 11 of them running around for that much over the last week is quite hard on the players. And I think even seeing Maya McCutcheon come off was kind of when I knew that something had gone crazy with the schedule, because she's probably our fittest player. She's played every single minute this season, and she probably would want to have played every single minute this season, but subbing her off and trying to prevent injuries. Alyssa Wynnum has the leg wrap on. You don't want her playing out in the heat this many minutes, because you'll just aggravate these injuries. There's not enough time to recover properly, and I just hate to see an ACL or something come out of this, or a season-ending injury, because the schedules are just so congested, and there's not even really enough time to travel between the places before you have to play again. So it is a tough one. We know that Australia is hot. that's a fact. We're playing over the summer. We can't turn the sun off or anything, but perhaps just pushing it back a tiny bit might make all the difference.
Yeah, I think for me, a big one, a simple one. I mean, there would be a cost, I guess, to teams, but why are we only allowed 5 people on the bench for the dub? And one of those has to be a keeper, obviously. And so unless you have to sub your keeper for some reason, you're literally restricted to 4 subs. You have five times you can make sub. Well, not time. You can make 5 subs, but one of those subs is useless 95% of games. It's not necessary. Whereas the men are allowed 7 on their bench, and which means that they can actually, like, they have more choice. It makes a huge difference. And I don't know why we can't just add that. Again, there is a small cost because it means you have to take an extra player with you when you're away. But it is the easiest thing to fix. It is easier to fix this than it is to fix the broadcasting timing and scheduling timing. I genuinely believe that it is easier to fix that. Just change the number of subs. Who knows if it'll happen? Instead, we just keep talking about kickoff times, which is also an easy fix. Danny?
I guess in terms of the subs, it is, my understanding, it's purely a financial thing in terms of the difference between the men's and the women's, in that you have more subs, you have to take more people away. That's a cost there in hotels and flights, etc. I imagine there's probably a wage thing as well. I don't know how contracts are done, but I imagine if you make a matchday squad and travel, you've probably got some bonuses there that you have to pay out, never mind if they actually come onto the pitch and play as well. So that's a purely financial thing. And again, very easy to fix, just give them more money, but that's maybe not so easy to fix, but maybe it should be. It would be interesting to see if maybe they got imaginative. So if you did have a certain heat level, maybe you can make more subs. Maybe you have rotating subs. So you can have people coming off and coming on again, a bit dramatic, but perhaps something like that could happen. So we have concussion subs now, or potentially, I think, still in the game. So maybe the heat subs, so you can bring someone off to have a break and then bring them back on again later.
You're also touching on the 2 drinks breaks per half. Like, not only is that a sign that it's probably pretty dangerous temperatures, but it also kind of ruins the flow of the game. We're playing like 12 minutes of football. You hardly even really get much action, and then they're off again to have some water. And then, after a couple seconds, they're back on, and it starts off with, I don't know, a kickoff, or I'm not 100% sure on the rules. And then it just happens again, and then it's half time. And I just feel like the game was just kind of slow, and I felt like I couldn't, kept breaking. It was way too many breaks, and just ruined the flow of the game. And so I think 1 drinks break is probably fine, makes sense, but 2 is kind of pushing the limits in terms of safety and just overall entertainment of the game.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us. If there are jumpy bits and things that don't make sense, sorry, I've been having crazy tech issues today. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Mā te wā.